Hi, I'm Tyson.
I'm Colin.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Adam.
And we're the Gamesmiths, and we just got done playing Monaxem, and we want to talk to you a little bit about our experience with it. To kick us off, Colin's got some thoughts.
I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was very clever. I thought I just loved reading the cards. I loved the iconography and all the little pictures, how they were so different. The strategy was very unique to any game I've seen recently, especially any that we've seen together. The win condition was a little different than I had seen. You get to be vindictive in the game. I love that, how you could hold grudges. That's my style completely. I think especially like starting the game, the person who threw a tantrum latest gets to go first. Like, yes, you really got to my heart with this one. Yeah, I had a blast. I didn't know what was going to happen. I liked the unpredictability about it, that like Tyson won out of the blue. I had two Kabluis, or two of the Hercs that I could have used, and I don't know, I could have played differently. I realized my strategy could be so much different the next time I played. I don't feel like I have the game figured out, and that intrigues me, and I think that's a great quality in a starting game.
Yeah, I'd like to back up. I think you did a really good job with the very minimalist art style that you have, and still being very expressive, and being able to express comedy in that kind of limited of a style is not easy. So good job with that. Like, that was fun. I think the whole
sort of Exploding Kittens-esque.
Yeah.
With the weird art and the humor.
But I think it was a lot of fun.
Well, in cards, you want to say out loud.
Yeah.
You want to let somebody know this is what I'm hitting you with.
Yeah. The flavor, right. With all that being said, it was a little disappointing that you didn't have like a better
Objective.
Well, you do have an objective, but like a setup, like a background or like a description of the game, like a mission statement almost. You know, like, what are we doing? I get the vibe. I get the vibe that you're just like at some weird kind of food fight, all-out brawl kind of thing, and you're just throwing whatever you have at people and you know, doing that kind of like backyard war kind of thing like that, or whatever. You know, I don't really know because you didn't tell me. And it always helps with someone to connect to a game right away by like, oh, this is what you're doing. You know, in Arkham Horror, you are paranormal investigators exploring a city. In, you know, this, you know, in Citadels, you're building a town. You know, you're a ruler of a province who's building a town. And so you have that, okay, this is what I am, this is what I'm doing. It helps put you in the right mindset and will get people into your world so much better. I think it's fun once you're in there, but I think it's kind of a rough entry into the world. And I think actually Tyson had some comments on that, both kind of conceptually, like once everything got going, we got it. It was a real simple game, it was real straightforward, everything was great. But without that kind of statement like, hey, this is what you're doing, like, hey, this is a game where you do this and you try and do this. And that just makes it so much clearer for everybody. It puts everybody in the right mindset from the get-go. And then starting the game off felt a little rough. I felt a little bit of what Tyson felt going third, but Tyson going last definitely felt disadvantaged at that point. Even though he did win, you know, and I'll let him talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Ryan's touching on it essentially, so I'll just dive into it. There was that first opening move where I knew Colin was going first. He had his 5 cards to choose from in his hand. He didn't have to choose a single one of those to defend with. So he got to hold on to the ones that he thought were most valuable and then put out the 3 that were he thought would do well. So he had a lot more choice in that opening move. And then it came around, and even Adam had 1 card to get rid of to defend or to use a surprise with. It gave him a little bit of choice to be able to do that. But as it started to come to either Ryan or myself, it started to look like, okay, well, now Ryan's got at least 2 things that he's got to take care of. So he's got to defend, and he has to get rid of maybe a good card. And then by the time it was me, I had 3 things to defend on the opening move, and everybody else has already started playing the game, and I'm waiting for the game to happen to me. And so as I was sitting there, I realized, okay, I've got these 3 cards, but unfortunately in my hand, I had 2 surprises. And on an opening move, 2 surprises for me meant that I couldn't play both of those cards. I could play one of those cards, and then the other 3 cards did not amount, the defensive value did not amount enough to be able to defend all 3. So I had to take a hit immediately, or use a kablooey, or I had to get rid of a card that could have been better used in a different way, and it wasn't as efficiently used. So right off the bat, I started to feel this feeling of, well, I'm starting at a foot backwards. And as the rounds progressed, even that next turn, I was like, I'm still trying to get back on my feet because I'm still constantly getting these things in front of me, and I haven't been able to defend them all. And so I still felt that oppressiveness of the game pushing me down, which obviously ultimately didn't result in being a terribly bad thing. I think that there is some sort of self-balancing mechanism with what Colin was saying, that this is a vindictive game. So people are not likely to go focus on the person who is clearly at a disadvantage the entire game. It's not as advantageous for them. So it is great to shift off, which is good.
All eyes are on the winner.
However, the problem is when you're sitting in that seat, you don't necessarily feel that. And so if it takes that long to feel like you're winning, at the point at which I won, like, there was a little bit of surprise to me because I had calculated it out, but I forgot that I lost the 2. I just thought that we were all going to tie, and then we were going to go to the duel. And so I forgot about losing the 2. And so it was a pleasant surprise to win, but because of that, it wasn't a win at which I felt like I didn't feel like I deserved that win necessarily. I felt like I was at a disadvantage the whole time.
You also didn't have that excitement of making the winning play. Right. And you're like, when you know you have the winning hand, or you've got the card, or you're just like, boom, or Yahtzee, or what, like.
And I did have a clever play because I was like, oh, I could get us all to tie, and that'll be great. That'll be fun. Right. But that didn't resolve the way I expected, and I was like, oh, I wanted to see how that worked out. I mean, I'm glad I won, but
winning by accident doesn't necessarily feel super great.
And I had acknowledged that that's probably not the most common occurrence to happen. Like, it just happened that I had the 2 surprise cards in my hand, and I ended up going last. Yeah, there was a combination of those.
But even so, I like the contingency plans that you had, the backup plans.
But I'm saying I didn't have those contingencies, him in the rules.
No, I'm saying as far as the rules are concerned, I'm really happy that you put in a different way to figure out tiebreakers. Like, that was such a cool way, because that actually brings in more strategy to the game. That maybe you want that to happen, and maybe you'd look for that again if you had seen that. I would, but
if I'm put in that mood in the first play of my game, I'm less likely to want to play continual versions of that game. I can tell you right now that I didn't want to jump right back in and play the game. As we've sort of discussed it, I can see more of the strategies, I can feel better about it, and I could go back into it, but it's not the same as making those decisions and feeling good about the game and feeling like I strategically won, or if I had only done this thing, I would have won if I had lost in that situation. And so it didn't make me want to jump right back in. Now, again, these guys really enjoyed it and had a great time with that. And so I'm not trying to say that needs to be fixed. I just think it's something to be aware of.
Yeah. For me, the game feels incongruent and sort of paradoxical in a not a great way, and I think there's plenty to work from, and I think there's plenty of good elements in this game that you can keep, but I think and expand on and work from, and really create a fun game. But for me, it feels like it's this really strange mix between like slapstick, funny humor, break the ice with strangers, play with people you don't know so well, and just pull out a game that makes you laugh a lot and have fun, which I think is the strength of this game. But you've done a couple of things in the game that I don't know if you knew you did, like with creating these strange win conditions. That adds a very weird, deep strategy level to this game. That if I just got together with the neighbors or with just random people, and it's like, hey, we don't know what to do. It's kind of the awkward situation of we're not close enough to like sit down and chat, but we want to hang out, so we just need some sort of thing to fill the room to get rid of the awkwardness. You'd grab a fun, silly game like this, and that's what I thought the game would be until Tyson won like he won, and I was surprised too. I was like, that's weird, because the whole time as in a normal game like this, I don't really have my strategy hat on so much. I'm just enjoying the funness of the game. And so I'm trying to not lose all my lives. I'm not trying to strategically distribute them so that I somehow win through this random tiebreaker, which actually becomes one of the best strategies in the game, is to use the tiebreaker as the actual win condition, which is a very strange thing to do in a game, which feels very progressive and strategic and fun to me in a lot of ways, but it doesn't match what I think the theme and the mood of the game that you've already set coming into the game is. And so that's where it feels really paradoxical and strange to me.
Too deep of a strategy.
Yeah,
for the tone.
so for us, we are avid gamers consistently playing every single week. And that kind of strategy really gets me going of like, oh, wow, this is weird. It's not something I've seen before. It gets the gamer in me going and like, okay, let's play again from this new weird perspective. But then I think all the goofy, silly, wacky stuff doesn't really matter to me. I'm trying to game this thing. I'm trying to hack the game, and it feels like you've built it to be hacked.
I think though with what you're saying is I don't think you're necessarily saying remove the theme, but make it.
I love the theme
because I do too. But I think that it goes kind of back to what Ryan was saying initially. Put that opening statement in there that tells you a little bit. This is what to expect from this game. If you had told me from the
What's it
get-go,
called again? Monaxem?
Monaxem. If you had told me from the get-go that this Monaxem is a game in which being the underdog can be the best strategy.
Right.
Losing fastest may be the best strategy.
Sure.
Like if you had given me the context in which I was feeling like being last place is not like last in turn order is not necessarily a bad thing, because it wasn't ultimately for me.
Right.
But if I had had that context, I would have been prepared to have those feel bads and then be like, okay,
Right.
I can come from behind. I can be a little bit more
That's a good point.
secret about that. If you had given me that, I think it would have fixed that. And then also to what Adam was saying, I think that if you had given those statements, that incongruous, paradoxical feeling of this doesn't mesh well is also solved, because players have this idea of there is strategy to this game, and be aware that it may not be what it seems. If you give me that kind of context, I'm more prepared to handle this type of experience.
That's a
Yeah,
great
and
point. I
explain
think if
what
you plant
Monaxem
that
is.
seed early and just say something along the lines of dying could be the best way to win,
Right.
or
I think we all
it's just
came.
the weird, like, hidden deep strategy there that's just like surprised you when you won and didn't really think you would. I was like, kablammy that thing or whatever. I was like, what are you doing? You're about to lose. And even your strategy of distributing them so we all tied was like,
it was chance for me, but it was chance for everybody.
That was too deep for the theme. Even that part, and then let alone for you to win in that fashion, was just very weird and confusing for everyone. So I guess with telling the right story, you
such a
could.
fun surprise.
It was.
It was. Well, it's just weird.
If you're
And I
prepared
could-
for that kind of a
but if-
surprise, it's a
Right.
fun surprise.
I'm sitting around with you guys, that's a fun surprise. But if I'm sitting around with people that I would normally play Exploding Kittens with, which is kind of this category of game to me, in the art, in the slapstick humor, we recently played another one called House Rules that's awesome, very awesome game. And similar to this one with the art style and the goofiness, those are the types of games that I want to pull out with my neighbors, people I don't know so well. If that everyone would have been so confused by that. People that don't normally play games, it just would not have gone over well. If I'm playing with gaming friends, this is not the type of game that I would normally pull out with my gaming friends, it becomes interesting, but again, I wouldn't go for this type of game typically. And so I think you have to do something to tie those together. So it's either change the mechanics, because I think the theme and the style is great. I think you could build off that. So I think you either change the mechanics or you write it, you explain it enough in the rules right up front so that everyone knows this is kind of designed to be a sweet and sour, contrasty, paradoxical game, and it just kind of screws with your mind.
Well,
and then
you
I
can't
think
have.
it could
I mean,
match.
I don't see anything wrong with like as a hardcore gamer who likes deep strategy having something that still has a theme of fun,
lighthearted,
a lighter theme. Like there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong.
I
with,
really liked
like
it.
if you know that that's the deep level of strategy, and this is something to pull out around on strategy night, not on social night, then yeah, like you don't have to. I don't think there's necessarily an incongruency to it.
Yeah,
like
I think it's
I think
great.
I think
just think in
you
the
saw
way it's
silly.
presented.
You saw silly and assumed
Yeah,
shallow.
I mean, like
didn't.
Monaxem, like what is
So
that?
that's
explain
just
what that means or
that's
something.
to you specifically.
But I think that, to be fair, there's
Uh-huh.
a lot of people would have that expectation. I did, but the thing that triggered me in thinking that maybe there's a little bit more strategy to this game is the amount of iconography here.
Right.
Which, if you put a lot of iconography, I feel like, okay, there's depth to this
Right.
game, and that's what I'm expecting. But then, to that point, even that is confusing to me because you match that theme with all this iconography. The way the game is presented up front just doesn't feel like... I wasn't sure, is this going to be a lighthearted game or is this going to be a strategic game? It wasn't completely apparent up front, and that's, I think, the big issue.
I would get rid of the iconography though.
I think it makes it too busy.
I don't think it's useful.
It doesn't help. There was
Like,
that
yeah.
one point, and we were looking at another player for the event card.
Yeah, for anything you could have just written, like for all of these you could have just written them out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like for just where they are, you know, when I actually saw these used on the event cards, how they were used, you could have just written them out. Like
Yeah,
you could have
I
just
agree.
written you could have just written move an attacking card anywhere. Instead you did big arrow, card with a death sign on it, and then wrote the word anywhere.
Well, and I think
Like,
the
just
reason you
wasn't-
need iconography right now is because the size of the cards are these little squares, which means you don't have a whole lot of real estate on that
Mm-hmm.
card to be able to put as much text. But I don't see a problem with turning this game into a card game and making it a normal sized playing card,
Right.
and putting a little bit more real estate for those words in there. It would clear it up for me.
Yeah, and and then I'd also maybe just clear up the rules a little bit as well. There were things like it didn't specify. We kind of assumed you could only have one attacking card per slot. It never really said that in there specifically. It just kind of felt like that's what you were going for, and so I would look at that again. I'd work on, I think mainly, I think ultimately you have a fun game here. And there are some issues with, I think, accessibility really. It's a little tough to get into. It maybe feels a little slow and a little bad getting started depending on what seat you're in. And you're not sure, faced with the tone and the level of strategy, what exactly you're getting into here. So I think, keep working on the game, keep refining a game, see maybe if there's some ways that you can prevent the person that's going last from feeling like that they're at a major disadvantage by, letting them draw extra cards, having the first player have less cards, or the first player start with a random card attacking them, or they're all, there are a bunch of different ways you can balance it out.
Let
a little
them
bit. So
mulligan
definitely-
even.
Yeah. So I definitely look at that, but I think the most important thing is find a clear mission statement. Say what this game's going to be, and get people on board from the get-go. And help. Not only does it help you sell the game, it helps people who buy the game and like the game sell it to their friends. I'm not exactly sure what I'd say in a sentence or two to sum this up to a friend who had never played it that I want to get on board. You should do that. You should give me that sentence or two So I read that and I go, oh yeah, that's what this game is, and then I share that with my friends, and then I get them to play, and then I take it out on strategy night, not on social night, or maybe just get rid of some of the more convoluted win conditions, make it just a more straightforward game, and at the end of the day, if you're going to use dice, if everybody's tied, just roll the dice that you have, and whoever gets the highest wins, and make it a little more fun. Or a little not more fun, lighter. To me, more strategy is more fun. Like winning by being winning by being the only loser is way more fun to me than rolling a bunch of dice. But ultimately, I think you got a great game here. Just focus on your mission statement a little bit and try and clean up the beginning of the game and clarify your rules. But other than that, thanks a lot and keep up the good work.